Now, does anyone want to take a guess at what the literacy rate in Tanzania is? It's about 76% for males and 65% for females. The average number of years in school for an adult Tanzanian is 5.8. That's less than a sixth grade education. These numbers do not include a bulk of the orphan population because so many of them are undocumented. Tanzania has no clear sense of these numbers. The female orphans are often forced to stay home with their host families to take care of the house and the kids, or sometimes even forced into marriage early so that they are able to provide for themselves. While the males are able to go to school a little more often, they too are forced to stay home with their host families so that they can help out on the land to make money for the host. Before I get too far in the statistics, I want to tell you a little story. Back in February 2008, I was making lunch for my then 10-year-old son. He comes into the kitchen and starts griping about how he's bored. I asked him, "Would you like my help finding something to do?" My son, being the smart kid that he is, knows that anything I could come up with is something he definitely did not want to do. He says no thank you and continues whining about how he has no fun things to do. Let me remind you, this is early February and Christmas was a little over a month ago. While the whining continued, I just ignored him and thought to myself, how did my son get so spoiled? But I know how. I resolved to show him ways to be more grateful for what he has. This resolve led me to want to take him to Africa. After a lot of research, this led me to Carl Gann. Carl is a co-founder of a local nonprofit called Orphans Africa. OA builds schools and dormitories for orphan children in Tanzania. I went and talked with Carl because I wanted to know what it was really like there. I had never been to a third world country, but I had always heard that they had starving kids there. Cue Sarah McLachlan commercial. While working with Carl and the other co-founders, I learned about their sustainability model. All three current OA schools are operated according to a model of self-sustainability, meaning that once a school is operational, fully constructed and registered with the government, that it is capable of supporting itself. OA's model combines tuition-paying students with fully dependent orphan students. The tuition received from parents of non-orphan students covers the cost of teachers' salaries, school operations, plus room and board for the orphans. Also, by combining non-orphans with orphans, social stigmas such as prejudices are reduced as opposed to being reinforced through orphans-only schools. OA believes in development, not aid. Development at the grassroots level empowers people to rise to their own giftedness and break the cycle of poverty. Needless to say, after I heard this, I was in. Although I thought it was best to go there by myself for the first time so that I knew what I was getting myself into before I took my son. I thought it was a great model and a great cause. After almost a 40-hour plane ride and a 14-hour bus ride into what seemed like nowhere, I had arrived at the Mwaji Secondary School in Bujela, Tanzania. When we arrived, there seemed to be thousands of people just dancing and singing, welcoming us. As I looked around, I noticed that there were a lot of kids, but I did not really pay too much attention to it. But after being there for a little while, I understood why. WorldPopulationReview.com says, Tanzania has a very low median age of almost 45% of the population being less than 15 years old, and only about 3% being over 64. This is in large part due to the HIV/AIDS epidemic. Currently, there are over 1.6 million people living there with HIV/AIDS. This has resulted in an estimated 1.3 million orphans. To equate this with US population, that would be like having over 7.1 million orphans in the US. Currently, we have about 400,000. As I walked around the school and talked with the kids, I was amazed at the lengths to which some of these kids had to go to get an education. Some walked 3 hours in the morning to come to school, studied all day, walked the same 3 hours home, and still had to help out at the house on the land. Because of this is often overwhelming. Some of the kids miss school. OA saw that and decided to build dormitories. They started with the girls. While I was there, I had the pleasure of staying in it with some of the girls. It reminded me of army barracks that you see in movies, but with bunk beds. There's a list of over 150 girls vying for a bed in this dorm that housed only 32 girls. The boys are still waiting. UNICEF states, in order to achieve sector goals, it is essential to invest in improving access to quality pre-primary education, including developing cost-effective models for pre-primary expansion, reducing the number of out-of-school children through a comprehensive multi-sectorial program. This is where you come in. There are many ways that you can help these kids. The first and the second way are absolutely free to you. Amazon. First, Amazon has a program called Amazon Smiles, which once you link the Amazon Smiles account to your charity, a portion of your purchases will go to the charity every time you make a purchase. No cost, promise. The second is much like the Amazon Smiles program. It's called iGive. iGive.com. There are almost 2,000 stores listed on this site. Say you want to order flowers for your mom for Mother's Day. Go to iGive.com and search for flowers. It will give you a list of flower shops in your area and the amount of donation that this vendor is willing to give to your charity, such as 1-800-Flowers gives 2.4%. No additional cost, promise. The last thing I want to leave you with is that it only costs $46 per year to educate, feed, and give medical insurance to one orphan. That's less than 13 cents a day. If you give just $6 out of each paycheck, you can help 3 kids get an education and feed 3 meals a day and medical insurance. That's just skipping one fancy Starbucks coffee every 2 weeks, and you're changing 3 kids' lives. Please go to orphansafrica.org. Check it out and give what you can. Every little bit helps a child in need.